All right, let's see what Digital Foundry has to say here. Let's see what they got to say.
If the future of all quote-unquote
Oh.
Xbox hardware is Windows devices, including in the living room, do you think it's likely that PlayStation alters its strategy with regards to porting first-party games to PC?
Nope.
And what would this most likely entail? Could they lengthen the gap between releasing on console and PC again, create their own PC storefront / launcher that gives them more
But then you just get the launcher on a Windows device, so it's perfectly fine, so it really wouldn't matter.
control over which devices their games run on?
No, it wouldn't, because it's the Windows device, so what the fuck would they care?
Or perhaps withdraw from publishing on PC altogether?
No, they
It's
won't.
hard to imagine Sony being comfortable with other living room consoles having access to their titles when exclusive.
Why would they? 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 Thank you for the 2BR Gamer.
What if a Souls-like Inuyasha game was developed?
That'd be cool as fuck. I'd be down for that. I only watched a little bit of Inuyasha. I didn't see much, but it took me a while to get into it. Honestly, I didn't really like the beginning. When I saw like the gem crack into like 10,000 pieces and not into like 10 pieces, I was like, okay, it's gonna be one of those shows where it takes 10 years to fucking finish anything in this fucking series. So no thanks.
Exclusivity has always been a key part of their success.
Not anymore.
Alex, this is kind of I don't know. I think this kind of thinking is probably reductive, because ultimately the reason Sony is putting out those games on PC is because they want to sell more games.
Yep.
So the concept of locking out from an Xbox console possibly makes sense because there aren't that many of them. But when you
Is that a one-piece jab? Yes.
start introducing limits on what PCs you can play your PC game on, I imagine the backlash from that is going to be
Sorry for filling you up so much, cum sleeve.
I fucking hate you guys. Thank you for the 2B songs.
large, and I'm not sure the extent to which it could even be enforced if an Xbox PC is an open PC.
Yep.
Yeah, I think they just want money. I don't think there's...
Damn right.
They're going to just like keep slowly expanding whatever their PC initiative is in the direction that they feel comfortable with based upon changing market conditions. And as soon as they start seeing, like you mentioned earlier in this episode, Rich, that the console model is maybe in its waning days in terms of popularity and how much market growth it'll see. And as soon as Sony starts seeing that with their internal metrics, they're going to start shifting, doing anything they need to do to make sure that they keep the bottom line.
The red line must always go up. Through hook or through crook. They will have to make more money somehow every quarter, every year.
Intact. And whatever that means. And in this case, I don't think Sony would do something like preventing... I don't think they're going to also launch their own store because they've seen such success on Steam, right?
Yep, true. Even with a 30% cut being lost, that cut gets reduced, the more copies being sold. So it's more advantageous for PlayStation to, in fact, put their games day and date onto Steam and PC, because then the actual reduction of cost that goes to Steam gets reduced over time the more copies are sold. If all your marketing goes day and date to PC and says, hey, you got it on console and PC day and date, well then look, check it out, buddy. Now you're selling even more copies on PC. That 30% goes to 20%, goes to 15, goes to 10. So now you're getting more money for more copies being sold over time on Valve and Steam. It's almost like it'd be beneficial for them just to do day and date, because all the marketing.
How about an open-ended Splinter Cell style Deathstroke / Red Hood game with a Nemesis system?
Just a Nemesis system in general, bringing that shit back, bro. Thank you for the 5 raging. That'd be the thing. That'd be the ideal thing.
They've even recently gotten rid of their policy that prevented people from buying and playing games on Steam from certain regions. They got rid of, for the most part, all the necessary you need to sign into PSN stuff.
That's all gone too.
You know, they tried to edge They tried to say like, oh, they thought they were more popular than they were, and
They sure did. Too bad. So sad.
then the backlash proved that they weren't. And I think that means that the market just on PC views Sony games as just any other publisher, not necessarily something special. And that has a very, like, maybe in the beginning it was novel that those exclusives were coming, but it's not that thing anymore. And so I think they have to actually have a more generous approach to PC than they possibly would have had 5 or 6 years ago. And I think that's going to just keep going on into the future for the foreseeable future, because what would be the point of preventing some device arbitrarily from playing your game? They're buying the game anyway, right? Don't you want that? Like,
they're buying the game. Don't you want that? Almost like that's exactly what they want from the very fucking beginning. They're buying the game. Don't you want that?
To add
Who
on
gives a
Atamin,
fuck what the
there
box
is an
is on?
Inuyasha PS2 game named Inuyasha, Secret of the Cursed Mask. It's an isometric, turn-based RPG with chibi models.
That sounds awesome, Onyx. Holy shit, I gotta check that out. Thank you for the 5, dude. Sorry, Chad, I didn't mean to yawn. Don't you want that? Don't you want people to buy the game?
And if it's digital, they're not spending money on a disc that they have to recoup then.
Or print or put out and ship.
All the middlemen are gone.
Oh,
Xbox
drop it,
is
Alex.
Cube to Sony fanboys. They are the rapper they loved to hate.
The rapper they love to hate. That's right, Liz. Thank you for the 5.
For the most part, at that point, it's just the store fee. And I think that's what Sony doesn't have a problem with.
Yep.
Right.
Because if they didn't have a problem with it, if they did have a problem, they wouldn't put their games on the platform in the first place. Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the point of the PC is it's an open platform. And if Sony decides to limit which devices their games run on, there's these things called mods. They'll just be patched, unless there's some massive collaboration with a...
Get it out of here, bro. It'd be so simple if the Xbox PC was just Windows. People would bypass that shit so fucking fast. Like, you wouldn't even know what fucking hit them.
Ponies would remain that way if Sony went back to making what they first made?
Do I think ponies would remain that way? No, I think if Sony went back to making what they first made, ponies would lose their fucking mind. They wouldn't know if it was good or not.
PS was forced into crossplay too. Exclusives are dead.
They are, Nissan. They are. Oh, sorry, chat. I apologize.
The DRM merchant.
Isn't Space Marine 2 good? Yeah, thank you for the 5, Shadow. Thank you for the 2, Nissan. Like, absolutely.
Pony Logic, DF showed PS5 Pro is the better console. We love them. DF is so evil, we always hated them.
That's right, Hobo. True. Thank you for the 5. That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Can't see it happening.
Yeah, the new version of Dunovo or Star Force or whatever.
Yeah.
Or fucking Sekirom.
Oliver, what do you think?
I honestly am kind of the mind that Sony will probably think at least a little bit different about their exclusives running on an Xbox now as opposed to just a PC.
I hate how this guy forces his tongue to the front of his mouth. That's where he gets the lisp from. Listen.
I can imagine it affecting their timing for PC releases at the very least, because if I was Sony, I would feel pretty reticent to just give my games to what's perceived as a major console competitor a year after launch.
But you guys aren't competitors anymore, bro. Xbox lost, remember? Why would you be afraid?
2 years after launch. But I suppose that really depends on a number of factors.
Not 2 years, baby. It'd be 6 months now.
I think it would depend on the extent to which people perceive the next Xbox offering as a full-fledged console, right?
They're calling it Xbox PC. It's a PC now. So
the extent to which I perceive that console as a threat. Like right now, I think Xbox Series is estimated at like 28 million, 30 million sold units.
Yeah.
PS5 at something like 80 million.
Oh my
God.
Oh my God, horrible.
Generation Xbox, are you going to presume that it continues that trajectory and the Xbox sells an even lower fraction of PlayStation units?
What if, chat? What if everybody realizes that Xbox made a PC without having to worry about the PC issues, and people just buy the Xbox next gen? That would be crazy. That would be crazy. Like I was telling people, I said if Xbox turns into a handheld and they give you access to every storefront, and you tell somebody like, hey, you can buy every game from every platform in one place and carry your library with you no matter where you go.
Your shoulders.
You're telling me that's not going to be an enticing offer to somebody if the pricing is right? That would be an incredibly enticing offer. Oh, wait, hold on. Wait, I get every game and Steam and Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation games on one box? You fucking for real? You kidding me? The way they need to... Okay. If Xbox announces the Xbox PC as the next gen console, what they need to do is go on stage, turn on the console on stage, and then launch Ratchet and Clank from the console. Or launch Spider-Man. Be like, look, here's a shortcut for Spider-Man that we bought on Steam, and then just launch it live in front of everybody. That, like, if they just did that, oh yeah, no, Spider-Man or The Last of Us. Oh, by the way, our next Xbox is a PC, which means you can have every game from every storefront regardless on your platform, all in one easy to use device with a very simple UI. Even access to Steam. And then go to Steam with the Xbox button and then just launch God of War.
Off topic, the chicks from Reckless Comedy are hot.
Yeah, I haven't seen Reckless Comedy, Adam. And then just launch God of War. And then watch the Sony logo boot up and everything on there and be like, look, it's right here. It's right there. And then say, we've worked with our friends at PlayStation. And they'd be like, we've worked with our friends at PlayStation. Just say some shit like that. Everybody be like, fuck, I'm buying one. Everybody would buy one, dude. And with CJ Mods, yeah, Josh. They'd be so pissed.
I don't know. It's at some point, to speak frankly, I don't think Sony is viewing that necessarily as a competitor in the console space. I think they just see it as a couple extra units sold, right? So
they'd
that's
be so
a factor
mad. They'll
as well.
riot.
But I also tend to think that even though like some of Sony's titles on PC, they don't sell tremendously well. Obviously, the initial round of titles sold a little bit better. God of War 1 sold a little bit better. God of War 1, God of War 2018 sold a little bit better. But I'd also perceive that if you are someone who's really interested in those Sony first-party titles, as so many PlayStation players are, if you thought I could buy this Xbox, get those games a year or two later, still have a console-like experience, would that maybe pull you away from Sony in a way that...
Oh, shit, fuck! Why did everything just close? Everything just closed on me.
If I don't think Sony will stop shipping it.
Why did everything just close on me? What the fuck? Goddamn.
On PC at all, but I could certainly see them saying, Nixies, hold off on Spider-Man 4.
Yeah, whatever, bro. Yeah, online free and walk. Yeah, exactly.
It's just Spider-Man 3, whatever, right? Let's just hold off.
Yeah, sure, Nixies. Yeah, okay, sure. Hold off on the extra money. Okay, sure.
I think the problem with that strategy is that you actually reduce your PC sales more generally by doing.
Yeah, buddy.
That I don't think it's a good idea strategically.
Yeah. I guess it depends on how many units are you moving on PC, right? Because like some of these games have not sold many units. That's the kind of key issue.
Who cares? It's printing free money, baby.
I can see a next-gen Xbox preset in future games.
I could see that too, Heck Boogie, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think that,
Remember, it prints free money?
Like, both perspectives here, because they would maybe want...
Just say it, Alex.
...a little bit of protection if they saw it as a threat, but at the same point, all these like super light releases or those releases that have quality issues, they just tank the sales. Like at some point, no one cares anymore about the game, because a lot of the big uptake in big AAA game sales is due to the advertising that comes out alongside them. And if you miss like this huge advertising period because you're 1.5 to 2 years late, you're spending again on advertising maybe to get
the stream. Oh no!
Oh, they gotta be. Bud and a band. Thank you for the one.
The sales up again. Yeah, it all seems like a bad thing to do.
Or 5 years late.
Or
in that 5 years late. Yeah.
when you start posing questions like this, it opens up a lot of other what ifs. I would suggest that, if Sony is making a PlayStation handheld, Valve, with whatever their next generation handheld is going to be, is probably going to be more of a threat. So,
everything's coming, bro.
And thus far, of course,
they look
Sony
upset. Yeah, it looks a little bit angry, doesn't it?
The Steam Deck. So, at what point do you actually reclass another device as a competing device? It's a bit of a tricky one, I think. I just think ultimately the way forward for Xbox is being laid out before our eyes, which is to say that it's about taking that existing user base, that all of those however many monthly active users, and kind of like giving them options as to where they want to go next. Do they want a
isn't that right, chat? Isn't that right, chat?
console? They'll get a console. Do they want a handheld? They'll get a handheld. Do they want to actually just tap into the PC ecosystem and continually upgrade? So I think that obviously we're probably looking at the last proper console coming in the 10th generation, and then from there it's just going to be this massive diversification of devices, and I don't think Sony can really strategize against that. It will effectively just be PC. Whether they appear on the Xbox store or not is going to be up for debate. But Microsoft has said, well, you can buy these games wherever you want, we don't really care. So it's going to be a bit of a step change in how the market is going to be viewed and the extent to which Sony and Microsoft are actually
look at Witcher Wedbetter just putting it out there, bro. Oh, crazy.